Hi YouTubers. Now you know when I was at school, some years ago, I must admit. Anyway, when I was at school, we used to do a subject called Greek mythology, and I used to enjoy it. It was really good fun. We had these great stories, and they were nice stories, fun stories, stories of heroism, and stories of mythology creatures, and this sort of Odysseus and Cyclopses, and of course you had Perseus on his winged horse, and there's some great stuff. But the thing is, I used to think it was some sort of storytelling that went on in Greek times. The word mythology was put in, and what it really was, of course, was the old Greek religion. And I never realised that, and it was never actually preached to me as the old Greek religion. It was Greek mythology. Now, where do all these myths and things got me got me thinking really. And I was thinking about urban legends and pub stories and the way things change and the way stories evolve in a way. And I'll start with some thoughts about sort of crazy things that many of us may believe is true, but they start as these sort of stories. Now, for instance, you accidentally swallow 8 spiders in your sleep every year. Now, if you actually think about that one, you may have heard this one. I've heard this several times, and I had to think about it, and I thought, that doesn't seem very likely. It's not very likely at all, really, although many people do believe it. Now, the chances of a spider coming across your mouth like this and then finding you with this hot breathing gases, it's not a sort of place a spider would go, oh, that looks a nice place for a home. It's not that sort of, they're not stupid. I mean, they're not super intelligent spiders, but it's not the sort of thing they would do. So the chances are you don't swallow 8 spiders in your sleep every year. Now, another example would probably be something like you only use 10% of your brain. Of course, a lot of jokes come from that one, and in a way, it's rather daft, really. You do, of course, use more than 10% of your brain. I had a bit of a think about it, and I thought, where did this one come from? Probably from the fact that many people will have head injuries and lose part of the brain, etc. And yes, you can survive without certain parts of your brain, but there are obviously parts of your brain that serve as different functions from others. Now, I have little doubt that there is a certain amount of storage capacity in a brain so that you can gain memories throughout your life, and for learning capacity, a bit like a hard disk. I'm guessing here, but I'm not no brain surgeon, but it seems logical that there is a little bit of space for putting memories in for when you grow up and for as you go through life. But 10%, it's that sort of reduction thing. I'm sure it's possible in some way to live or exist with just a fraction of a brain, but of course it doesn't mean we don't use the rest of it. Now, another good one. Men think about sex every 7 seconds. Yeah, I hadn't thought about sex while I was making the first part of this video, but now I am. But there you go, not every 7 seconds. And even if you put it down into sort of an average, like, you know, I could spend the next couple of minutes thinking about sex, I doubt whether it would average down to 1 in 7. It's not something that we really do, but it's one of those mythologies, one of those urban myths, one of those stories that's just, we believe. A lot of people do believe them. Then you go on to sort of things like, oh yes, the suicide rate increases at Christmas. I can imagine why that would become a sort of urban myth, but in fact it's not true. In fact, around Christmas time, there seems to be a decrease in the suicide rate. Why? Well, it's true that many people are alone at Christmas and probably get slightly depressed about it. But in fact, most people are with a family at Christmas and they don't get a chance to commit suicide. So that's more likely. So another one of those strange urban myths. Okay, I'll have a sip of tea now. Yeah, tea today. Today I'll be mostly drinking tea in my elephant mug. Okay, 2 cups in this one. Anyway. Okay, Now, those sort of stories are one way of looking at urban myths. Another way of looking at urban myths are things like those little stories. There's masses of them. Quite a lot of them seem to consist of two lovers in a car and some sort of psychopath on the loose. I'm not actually going to do those, but they are very popular. A good one that I remember from school days was somebody at school was supposedly, lying on his bed at home with his big headphones on, listening to his LPs, whatever it was in those days. Anyway, we did have stereograms, and yes, he would be sitting there listening to these with his eyes shut and obviously thinking erotic thoughts, for he was playing with himself. And of course, with his eyes shut, listening to his music. Oh, it's great, it's great, it's great. And of course, he opens his eyes, and there's a steaming great cup of tea sitting right next to him, because his mum's been in and put it on his bedside table. Now, it's a funny story, but the thing is, at school, we actually believed it. And it was only later in life that I found out that there was lots of other schools who also had a kid that did exactly the same thing. It was an urban myth. And I didn't even realise it was an urban myth. So it was quite funny though. You also get things like restaurants being closed because someone was ill, and when they tested the mayonnaise, it was full of the workers' semen. I mean, it's horrible, isn't it? But I've heard this actually several times. And from people who actually told me, have you heard about that restaurant, that McDonald's up the road? And I go, oh no, not that story again. But people are believing it. And I said, it's rubbish. It's been told so many times, but if the first time you heard it, you could actually believe it. Now, there's other sort of urban myths as well. The young girl in The Sound of Music. Now, I thought she was dead. I thought she died just after making The Sound of Music. But in fact, no, she'd been alive all this time. So almost feel cheated, really. But there you go, that was a myth that went on, and even to this day there's lots of people who say, that little girl that was in The Sound of Music, the little one, oh, she was killed in a car crash a month after filming, or something similar, perhaps I don't know, leukemia or something. I can't remember the exact reason for death, but there you go. And things like Valerie Singleton. Now, she was on the telly at the time when I was young. So Blue Peter, it's a very British sort of children's program, sort of magazine program. And she was one of the lady star, as it were, of the programme. And of course, I've gone through life now believing that she was a lesbian. Not that it mattered, never bothered me, but I found out that she wasn't. Only a few weeks ago, I went, well, that's funny. All my life, people have been telling me she's a lesbian. And even going, she's a bit sort of Valerie Singleton, and she's not. So there you go, an urban myth made up again, which is absolute codswallop. Okay, so where's all this going? And it's getting a bit long, so I've been about 8 minutes already. Oh, Lord, I think it's going to be a 2-video thing. So we'll start actually with the memes, pub stories, etc. So we're going to go on to things like Robin Hood and King Arthur, and St. George and the Dragon, Rob Roy, Ned Kelly, Blackbeard the Pirate. All these sort of myths and legends from real characters, or supposedly real characters, that existed, and they have a mass of legends following them. Okay, St. George, for instance, he was credited with slaying a dragon in the 12th century, but in fact the act took place apparently in Libya. He fought below an enchanted orange tree. That's nice, isn't it? He apparently threw his spear at this, which was supposedly made of wood, I'd have thought, but he threw this spear at the dragon and it shattered into 1,000 pieces. So perhaps it was glass. But anyway, it knocked him back and he fell under this enchanted tree, and orange tree. And basically it healed him. So and the dragon couldn't touch him there. So he got up again, and then the dragon spat acid on him. That was the one. Split his armour in two, but he fell under this orange tree again, enchanted, and once again he was fine. Got up again with his sword, no armour. Managed to find a soft spot under the wing, killed the dragon, saved the maiden. Great. But of course, it's all a folklore based on another character, which was St. George, of course. And it seems that he was in fact a member of the Roman army, quite a good warrior, perhaps even went to Britain at one point during his reign. His parents were Christian and they were persecuting the Christians at the time, and he protested against it and they tortured him and killed him, basically. So he became St. George. That's apparently a more logical story. But we don't really know, do we? We never really know. Anyway, I think I'm going to have to go on to a second video for this. Sorry.